Hello guys, welcome back to another video on the status forecast for the channel. Today's video we're going to be going over, yet again, the more than likely major Arctic blast that will be entering the USA later this week, into this weekend, and into next week, in the following, and the weeks to come as well. We'll also be talking about potential snowstorm risk. I'd say there's a few chances out there at least. One of them being particularly in the Gulf Coast. Particularly the Gulf of Mexico, and then eastern seaboard will face many chances to see any type of winter storm. So yeah, let's get into this video. So right now we're just looking at snow showers out there with some cloud cover across the eastern half of the country. You're also noticing this stream of cloud cover coming through the southern Pacific Ocean all the way back into portions of far western Texas. I'm not sure what this is honestly, but it looks to me like a stream of moisture, kind of like what you see in the Pacific Northwest with the atmospheric river events happening near around California. This is a similar event, I think, with a stream of moisture coming straight out of the southern Pacific Ocean. And that will continue to move through the Texas area in the coming hours. Cloud cover up in the upper plains with a mixture of light to heavy snow coming through Canada, working its way to the south. Another area of low pressure system over the northeast, dropping a few inches of snow and some scattered snow showers and a few rain showers in the southern parts of New England and northeast, and as well as the mid-Atlantic. Showers happening west of Tampa here in the Florida region, with just some rain showers out there, nothing severe as of now. Temperatures out there right now. Here's your temperatures out there right now. Mostly 50s, anywhere around. It's basically a split country scenario here. 50s near 60 degrees and a few isolated spots over the 60 degrees in portions of California. All of the southeast dealing with, again, these are slightly below average temperatures. I'd say you're normally in the 50s and near the 60s and 70s. I don't really know what the average temperature is down here in the southeast, but it can't be as cold as this, that I know for sure. 40s to near 60 degrees for much of the state of Texas, all the way back through portions of Florida. Areas not seeing temperatures between 50 and 60 are Georgia, South Carolina, Atlanta, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and portions of Louisiana as well. And this does actually sneak its way into portions of North Carolina. But we see one particular spot on the map near 71 degrees down. We saw this exact same spot the last video we did, or I did anyways, southwest of Miami, Florida, with a temperature reading at 71 degrees. Obviously much colder in the eastern half of the northern half of the country, on the eastern half I mean, but we get really cold here in Maine. The only spot really seeing any sort of temperature drops here. There is a few spots in northern New Hampshire, Vermont, and portions of even Pennsylvania through New York, but a lot of these colder temperatures are happening up in the northern side of Maine, where we're dealing with temperatures. Holton, 8 degrees, that's the coldest one I see on this map, besides a few other locally cold temperatures, but we will continue to see the polar vortex is about to unleash all heck. The polar vortex is about to go crazy, okay? We're going to see a shot of Arctic air come straight out of Canada, right down through the upper plains, and this will eventually make its way all the way down to the southeast, and pretty much all the entire eastern half of the country will be affected. This will likely, I'm not sure about the coldest January we've had in years. I'd have to look. I've seen people say coldest January we've had in years. I'd have to look at similar pictures, similar graphs, but I definitely will say this will likely be the coldest stretch I've seen in a few years, at least for the eastern half of the country, that is. But the northern side of the country, as far as the upper plains, is quite familiar with this sort of setup. Focuses on the cold air right now. Cold air will plunge out of Canada straight through the upper plains. This will eventually quickly rush down to the eastern half of the country within probably just a few days, and we'll be dealing with probably morning temperatures up and down the east coast. I wouldn't say all the way down in Tampa, Florida, all the way down in Florida we're seeing temperatures in the single digits, but you get the main point. Northeast will definitely get hit hard by this event, with temperatures in the mornings likely only to be in the single digits, if not below zero, in much of the state of Maine. That goes down through Pennsylvania as well. Alright, I want to get into this interesting graphic. Alright, so here it is. I thought this was a cool little graphic that the National Weather Service made. So it says, pattern set up early to mid next week. Arctic air likely to intrude toward the Gulf Coast. Questions on Gulf low development, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute as far as storms go. But so the overview, they are talking about the so-called polar vortex will move down into Canada. Move down into Canada just north of the Great Lakes by Monday. The Siberian Express Arctic air from, I've never heard of that one before, but you get the main point. The Arctic air from Siberia moving across the North Pole will drop down on the backside of the vortex through the plains and towards the Gulf Coast. Expect hard freeze temperatures and dangerous wind chills. There's still some uncertainty on the development of a surface low over the Gulf and how much moisture it will bring that may lead to chance for winter precipitation. So this is a cool little graphic, so you can see obviously that big purple bullseye up there is your polar vortex, obviously. Arctic air will be surging in, as you can see here, and then we're still watching for a potential low pressure development in portions of the Gulf of Mexico. This will likely form somewhere in the Mexico area. Therefore, it'll probably eventually move off to the east, but time will tell about that whole thing. I think this is a really cool graphic. But back onto the video. So here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Obviously, we're past. I didn't really want to show the 8 to 14 day outlook because it didn't look as impressive as it did the other day. But as you can see, most of the East Coast dealing with below average temperatures. I think it's definitely a potential we could see below average temperatures here, but we typically don't see them here, but it's always a chance. Only areas sticking above average or near normal will be the western half of the country, particularly near Nevada on westward into California, portions of the Pacific Northwest, and then obviously the upper plains, which is rather strange in my opinion, because typically you would see that colder than average temperatures up here, but whatever the Climate Prediction Center goes. So above average temperatures, I wouldn't say highly above average temperatures, but slightly above average temperatures in the upper plains. But as far as precipitation goes, there's still no information on the snow hazardous graphic that they made, but this is the latest one that I can find as far as precipitation goes. So again, heavy precipitation, basically targeting that exact same area as I made in my video the other day, and unintentionally I made the same exact area for a low pressure hotspot. I did not really mean to copy them, but that's okay, I guess. It's mostly just the southeast dealing with this entire system. Again, we're all just watching for potential low pressure development in the Gulf of Mexico, which could lead to any winter precipitation, which, given the temperatures that we could take a look at here in just a minute, that will definitely prove that right, as far as we get a low pressure development down here. But the temperatures are going to be cold enough for snow, nonetheless, but obviously Florida would not be, northern Florida will be involved, but the rest of Florida will likely not be involved because it's going to be likely too warm to be snow, so it'll likely be rain. So now on to the actual weather model. So we're going to start off with the European model in this video. So here we go. So we're going to go straight to it, right through the polar vortex event. So here's, it comes through about the 18th, and you get that big Arctic wave come through the first, technically the first one, but it gets way more extreme. So temperatures keep on crashing down to the single digits, and still right through portions of northern Texas on southward, straight through the upper plains on southward back to the North Texas area, you're getting into temperatures that are below freezing anyways. So then that continues to go through, and then the Arctic air looked way more severe a few days ago, but here we go. It pushes down again. This looks more of a likely trend now. We'll see northern Florida back to the Gulf Coast, all the way back into Texas, pretty much the entire state of Texas, under 30 degrees. Only spot to watch out for, and not really any big concern, but still going to be colder than average, will be far southern Texas, and then obviously Florida. But northern Florida gets hit hard with this event, with well below average temperatures, I'd say, with temperatures right around that freezing mark. So that's definitely very rare for them. But that event goes through. Then that moves on, and it focused mostly on the Great Lakes region and on into the northeast. This looks much colder than it did a few runs ago, and a few days ago. Looking at 20 to 30 degrees below zero in portions of the state of Wisconsin. which is interesting. Or Minnesota, I mean. Yeah, that's Minnesota. My bad. Um, and then here we go. These temperatures continue to plunge, and notice that freezing line is still stretching all the way down into portions of Georgia, Alabama, Florida, all the way back down through Louisiana, and including portions of Texas, but obviously the Northeast and Northeast and New England, back through the Rockies and northward, are all dealing with very cold temperatures. So definitely gonna make sure you have, get geared up for this entire in bed, because this looks cold, cold, cold. And that focuses, and then it gets a little bit more intense for some reason. On Wednesday, focusing on much of the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, portions of the Ohio Valley, and even portions of the southern half of the Great Plains region in the Midwest. But particularly the interior New England and portions of the Appalachian Mountains really gets on those really cold temperatures that could fall as low as possibly, I'm not even kidding, I just saw 32 degrees below zero. So that's the first Arctic shot, and again, it still remains cold down here, and wow, that's interesting. So as this Arctic air continues to push through, it even pushes farther down near Tampa, with temperatures near or around 32 degrees. I'm not saying that's going to happen, that's probably a very unlikely scenario right now, but I can at least feel pretty confident that we could see temperatures around that freezing mark as far north as the panhandle of Texas and into the Big Bend. So that's the first Arctic air. Then we get a likely another one come through on Friday. Not this upcoming Friday, but next Friday, the 24th. It gets real cold in the Northeast. That moves on, and then we potentially a little bit of a warm up, but it doesn't stay for long at all. Matter of fact, it doesn't stay long at all. And then Arctic air starts to build again, and then it focuses again on the Northeast. But this is on the 31st of January, so this is a long way away. But temperatures look freezing, like downright freezing in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, back through the Upper Plains, and potentially even down into the Great Plains and the Midwest, all the way back to the Northeast and New England. DFS model, I'm not sure what it's going to think about this entire situation. It tends to blow up these situations quite a bit and make them look way more extreme than they actually are, but we'll see how it goes. So here we go. Here's the first Arctic air push. So it doesn't look as significant on the DFS model. I noticed that those freezing temperatures don't reach quite down into the Florida area, but it does get, there is one particular frame that does get that freezing line, at least down into portions of the panhandle of Texas and portions of the Big Bend of Texas, where we notice temperatures right around that 32 degrees mark, and then it quickly goes down it doesn't quickly go down, but it slowly goes down as you head into the upper plains. We continue on, again, I tend to agree with this shot of Arctic air, the coldest of the temperatures, focusing on much of the upper plains back through the Northeast of New England and back to the Appalachian Mountains. I definitely agree with this entire solution, or this model run, because this looks a little bit more favorable. This looks something like I've seen in the past with cold temperatures, and then we get a little bit of a warm up, but notice it doesn't really get that warm. We had one model run the other day that brought those warm temperatures, and then the entire East Coast was pretty much above average temperatures. That does not look like it's going to happen now, so that was a quick change over ideas. And then you notice cold air blast. So it does look like it's a trend for a winter. It's definitely a trend for a winter ride. I don't know how to say it, but looks like a cold roller coaster to me. Not like temperature roller coasters where we see a warm up and then cool down. It looks mostly cold in my opinion. So this GFS model does go through February, and it continues to look. The only one time that we actually get into, this was not shown on the European model, but we do get one warm-up. As you can see, there's an area of low pressure, I'm assuming, somewhere in the Texas area where that slight warm-up comes through. And then that continues to ride up the eastern seaboard, and everybody's above average temperatures, but then again, those temperatures crash. So it looks like multiple shots of Arctic air are likely at this point. It's just a matter of how severe are they. But this one looks really likely right now. This is pretty much 4 days out, so this is likely to happen. This would be pretty much a Sunday, I'd say, through, well, obviously it'll be in the upper plains first, come Friday and Saturday. But I'd say Saturday through, it continues on, and then probably even all the way through next, it really doesn't go away. So that's the first Arctic shot that lasts for like 5 to 7 days in a row. And then another Arctic blast comes through. This one will likely last a few days as well. and then a slight warm-up, and then we go right back down to the freezer. Now we're going to take a look at your precipitation. So, I'm sure you guys are all wondering what is happening with the Gulf of Mexico right now. All eyes on that. Well, here we go. So, here's the first system. This one isn't quite far south enough to be a winter storm. This will likely be a northeast event, which will create some mixed precipitation in portions of specifically Maine. But as you can see, that one system offshore looks rather strong on the side of things, but rain and snow and mixed combination up in the interior New England, specifically Maine. And then we're still watching this area of low pressure that develops somewhere in the Georgia and Alabama area that rides up the eastern seaboard. This looks to me like a mostly coastal event as of now, but as you'll notice with the GFS model is shifting it more off to the northwest. So it looks like a rather weak system, but again, we could see our first actual, I wouldn't say snowstorm, but snow event. I'd say a quick 1 to 3 inches. I'd say between like 1 and 3 inches, but in those locally heavier bands that stay around for a little while longer through, I'd say, southern New England through Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island get the most out of this. I'd say a quick 1 to 3 inch range, and then obviously Maine you just get grazed by it, so probably a coating to an inch if anything, maybe an inch or two in portions of far down eastern Maine, but that's about it. And then things get a little bit more interesting. The ERP model is already hinting at a major, well, not a major, but it is major for the folks down in the southeast. It just went through a snow, sleet, and ice event that came through in pretty much the entire areas that I'm circling through Texas, all the way back to Tennessee and up through portions of the Carolinas, but North Carolina and South Carolina. But as you can see, this has the mixed line even offshore, which I still don't know if I buy this given this is still like 7 days out, but it's always a potential. And then Florida gets on a rare snowstorm, which is very rare. This system does not look like it's going to go up the eastern seaboard and impact the northeast at all, as a strong high pressure is in control. And obviously another low pressure, you're not really going to get anything that comes up the eastern seaboard. But things could get interesting. So here we go. Another shot of a snowstorm off the eastern seaboard, maybe grazing portions of the mid-Atlantic. This is the 25th of January. And then going through, and then I saw one run where it indicated a major snowstorm for the northeast going through the 29th. Now this is kind of funny. So the GFS model thinks there's going to be a big warm-up, and then the European model thinks there's going to be a snowstorm. So this looks like a really big, I wouldn't even call this a snowstorm, this is a straight-up blizzard. Through the 29th, and this is obviously a long time out, but it could be snowing very heavily in portions of central Maine and even down into the Cape Cod area. And then that moves through, and then potentially some sort of winter event happening in portions of the southeast. But let's see what the GFS model has to say about this. So here we go. So the GFS model, again, this precipitation, the GFS model likes to just blow it out and make it seem like it's a huge deal when it's really not. So mid-Atlantic and northeast, again, it pushes it farther than northwest, which means a nor'easter for the the northeast for the northeast once again. And with this being said, if we actually take a look at the point sounding here, let's see. So it's just straight down snow. And yes, I get it. So this is like, yeah. So if it was more like 30 degrees to 40 degrees and there was a nose like this on it, then probably more of a mixed bag. But obviously we're way below average temperatures, so we are dealing with cold temperatures and plenty cold enough for all snow. So if the GFS model is right about this entire thing, which is still 4 days out, and given the European model has it all a little tiny bit more offshore, leading to a little bit more of a coastal event, but this is more of an entire state event. It really covers pretty much the entire northeast, really. That goes through, then we get calm, but then we see another system. When you have a system like this, you know there's going to be warm-up unless if a high pressure can suppress it to the south. But this is not what it shows, well, it actually does. So this is weird. So I actually saw this on the European model, didn't I? I'm not sure, but this looks like another close call, but a nor'easter on the 25th. So I think this is the same time. It's not the same time frame, but I think this is the same winter storm that the European model is hinting at. So that, again, there's still really low confidence, and this is still like 2 weeks out right now. 1 to 2 weeks, I'd say. But given they're both kind of hinting at a winter storm does give you a little bit of confidence, but again, you can't just focus on like 10 days out, 20 days, 5 to 10 days out, because it's just not likely to happen unless the weather models stay persistent with it. And then things get interesting with another big warm-up, and then this will likely be a major wind and rain event for the Northeast. But again, look at the time frame, 29. So it's very little confidence and not really likely at this point. And then maybe another, this is the same system we saw in the European model. Look at this, another rain, snow event. But the main idea of this entire video is it's going to be cold, it's going to be frigid, and there's potential for snowstorms. As far as your snow precipitation, as far as your snow accumulation goes, we'll see how the GFS model rules this one out. Here's the accurate modeling of the snowfall, in my opinion. I've seen this before, but we'll see how it goes. Here we go. Again, notice the areas. It's pretty easy to tell who's seen the major snowstorms. Pretty much this half of the country, the eastern half of the country, is dealing with some sort of snow, the only exception being the southeast. And then obviously, pretty much the entire United States getting on some snowfall, some heavy, some light. But most of the winter storms are either focusing on the Great Lakes or up and down the East Coast. The the European model, the European model, here we go. We'll see what the European model does. So the European model is a little bit later on the snowfall accumulation, but notice it's more widespread and it affects areas that the GFS model did not have in mind. One spot in particular that is quite interesting to me is down in the southern half, very extreme southern half of Georgia and northern half of Florida, dealing with like 7 inches of snow. Again, not very likely. Snow in the Pacific Northwest, that's pretty normal, but again, spots that are in the drought right now and don't see much in the way of precipitation, that will remain the same. It looks to me like it's going to anyways. The entire state, well, mostly the entire state of California, besides the northern tier of it, is dealing with a quick 1 to 2 inch snow type deal. But again, Northeast and New England, Mid-Atlantic, and back to the Great Plains, and really, I'd say the entire half of the northern half of the country, all the way down to in this model, it's probably like 75% of the country dealing with some sort of snowfall. Only exceptions being like, well, even this has gray on it, so that means there's obviously like a centimeter of snow. I'm calling for any like from a millimeter of snow all the way to like extreme amounts. So only spots seeing no snow will be Florida, probably the 95% area of Florida dealing with no snow. Western Texas dealing with no snow, and that goes through for pretty much the entire western half of the country, not including the northern half of the northwestern half of the country. So this includes areas like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Nevada again, Washington, and I still don't know what the state is, but I'm sure it's an easy one to guess. But anyways, and this entire section of the country is dealing with no snow, which I would say that's pretty typical because you're not really getting any precipitation out of this, especially in those deserts. Deserts pretty much see no rain. It's very rare. So did we take a look at the GFS model? We'll take a look at it one more time, just in case. So here's the GFS model with the more inaccurate reading. So notice that, again, I'd say pretty much the entire country, if not like a couple to several states, are seeing no snow. But you can see this just proves it all how cold it's going to be, really. So rainfall doesn't really need to be said because we're not going to be dealing with a whole ton of rain event. The only areas that we could see rain is probably in the Northeast off of the GFS model and portions of Florida. But yeah, it's going to be crazy how we see this. Also, I wanted to go back. We don't really have all the tools to view if there's actually a severe weather threat, but I want to take a look one more time to see if we could have a severe weather threat. I mean, it looks like a little bit of a squall line going through over Florida, potentially on the 21st here. As you can see, that little squall line right here. It's not really much of anything, but again, anything that's like pretty much offshore like that, or something that looks like that, kind of looks to me like a squall line. But again, this is away from the area of low pressure, so that would not be the case. I'm taking a look at any chance of severe weather, but I'm just not seeing anything here. Maybe, yeah, I'm not seeing really anything here. With the GFS model, we'll see what it does with this. Here's the GFS model. I'll see if there's any chance of severe weather. So the only chance of severe weather I see is the 23rd. This is off the GFS model anyways. You can see scattered to numerous thunderstorms right here associated with a weak area of low pressure, and that will continue to go through. And then it kind of fizzles out right there before the northeast gets hit big with the big system. But for now, maybe eastern Texas all the way up through Georgia, or I mean Alabama could see a severe weather threat. I mean, the best we can do for severe weather potentials here is probably the helicity, the energy available, and the shear as well as the cape. So we'll take a look at the shear first. So here's the shear. So again, we want to go back to the 23rd or so. So it's not really, it's an amplified jet, yes. So that's why we could see severe weather, but we want to go through like the 23rd. So it is a moderate shear environment, like 90 knots to 95 knots in this general area. So there's potential for spin in the atmosphere, but this will also promote damaging winds, because it makes sense to me. Obviously, what we see in the northeast a lot of the time with the windstorms, any of those heavy rain bands that get through brings down those winds, so you know, anything is possible. Next, we're going to take a look at the cape. So here we go. The GFS model, here we go. We want to go through the 23rd. Yeah, I'm not really seeing much here. So the cape does not look good, which means, I mean, maybe the far tip of Louisiana, the far southeast tip of Louisiana gets a little bit here, but it's not enough to really be a big impactful severe weather event. But we'll see what the helicity looks like. So here we go. Here's the helicity. So here it goes. There it is right there. There's your helicity. It looks strong. It looks very strong. In fact, it looks incredibly strong. That would promote severe weather. Energy available, or yeah, the helicity, right? So here we go. The 23rd. Oh yeah, we had to take a look at this, but again, the far tip of southern Louisiana gets on a little bit of there, but super soft composite. So we did see a little bit of a line of scattered to numerous thunderstorms here, so let's see what it does with this. So the 23rd. Yeah, so I think it's too cold to be severe weather, honestly. But I mean, maybe a little spot down there in portions of Louisiana, but it's not much. Photographs. Here we go with the photographs. Again, it's very far. We got to go all the way through the 23rd. Yeah, far southeast in Louisiana gets on a little bit. So there's that. I believe the European model also does something similar to shear. Yeah, it does. Okay, here's the European model with the shear. Through the 23rd, well actually, if we take a look at the precipitation, the timeline might be a little bit screwed up. So, here we go through the 23rd. Yeah, it's a little bit screwed up. So the European model doesn't show much of anything, honestly, so it's not even worth looking at. But it does show a monster snowstorm like we saw. But yeah, alright, that's going to do it for this video, so things to watch out for in the next 6 to 10 days. I'd say really 7 to 20 days. 7 to 15, maybe 20 days, is multiple shots of Arctic air, some that could potentially break records, because I haven't seen really cold air in the northeast like this in a long time. It's been a long time. I've not seen like particularly long stretches of cold weather like this, but also we'll have to watch out for this potential winter storm, specifically in the Gulf of Mexico, where it seems to be the storm hotspot. It really does. It seems to be the southeast near the Gulf of Mexico that is a storm hotspot for formation. And then obviously the East Coast should be on not high alert, but should be on some sort of notification alert that we could see a potential winter storm anytime in before the end of January. But those temperatures are going to get really cold, man. It's going to get really cold out there, and it's going to get cold fast. So I'd say this whole cold snap starts around Saturday, this upcoming weekend. It begins in the upper plains and then quickly rushes down into the southeast and affects much of the eastern half of the country. I'd say all next week is going to be cold, well below average temperatures. So we'll have to see how this whole thing plays out. But yeah, hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, please consider, please like the video. It would help me out a lot. But also consider subscribing. We are trying to grind all the way to 50 subscribers, which I know is it's not a monster milestone, but it's a good start, right? So I would highly appreciate you guys if you would consider liking the video and also subscribe to my channel, as we are trying to reach 50 subscribers, as I mentioned before. But yeah, I guess that's going to end it for this video, so yeah. Also, stay safe out there, as I always say, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.